Hi again, we're on section 3.6 and we're going to be talking about domain. So when we're talking about domain of an equation, we could, find some ordered pairs or something if we needed to. But really I want you to look at it in this way. If it's a linear equation, and this is the same as y equals 5 minus 2x, it's just a line. And so there are no restrictions on my x coordinates. That means x can be anything. So when I'm looking at this in interval notation, I write it as negative infinity to positive infinity, right? That means all real numbers. X can be any real number. On the second equation, we do have a restriction because there is a number that could make our denominator 0, right? So if x was equal to 6, the denominator would be undefined. So we have to leave 6 out of our domain. And that's really what you're looking for. Is there some kind of restriction? This is a restriction. The denominator cannot be 0. That makes the denominator undefined. And if I put a 6 in for x, I would have a 0 in the denominator. So here's how we write this domain in interval notation. We're going to go from negative infinity to 6. Now when I put a parenthesis, that means that 6 is not included. And then we union and go 6 to positive infinity. And because of the parentheses, that says that we're not including the 6. On the last one, this is simply an absolute value equation. We can put x in, any kind of x in this, and it's just going to be the graph of it looks like a V. And so there are no restrictions, which means negative infinity to positive infinity. All right, now we're going to write the same kind of things for graphs. So we're going to write domain and range. So if you look at just the x's, you can see that the arrows mean this is going to keep getting wider and wider. It's never going to stop. So for my domain, my interval notation for the domain is going to be from negative infinity to positive infinity. This never ends, and any x is okay, right? Because it just keeps going. Now on the range, this has a starting point. If you notice, it's at negative 4 right here, right? It's at 3, negative 3, negative 4. So because of that, it never goes any lower. So for this one, the range is going to start at negative 4 and go to positive infinity. Okay, so that's interval notation. Same thing happens with the domain on this parabola. Right? It keeps going in the negative direction, but it also keeps getting wider and wider and wider. So x can be any number, any real number. So negative infinity to positive infinity again on that. And then my range is going to start at 5. Or it stops at 5, I guess you could say, right? The highest point on my graph is at 5. So for the y coordinate, I'm going to go from negative infinity to 5. Now this one's kind of confusing sometimes. Notice I use the brackets on numbers because these numbers are included in my domain. I have to write these from least to greatest. So negative infinity has to come before the 5 for that reason. Okay, so the next two are both lines. They are not vertical, and so they're just lines. And in this case, then, my domain and range will be the same for both. So domain will be negative infinity to positive infinity because this thing just keeps going further and further left and right. And then it also continues going up and down. So negative infinity to positive infinity for this one also. All right, and domain and range of these relations. Okay, so the first one is a horizontal line. And my domain on this is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity because it just keeps going left and right, right? The x's can be anything. But the range is simply one number. and that one number is where it's going through, right? It's at 2. So the only y coordinate on this is 2. So we're just going to put a 2 in the braces. So we can't really write 2 in interval notation. It has to be written this way. Okay, so the range, the domain of this next one is just 3 because it's a vertical line. So we're going to write it as 3. Boy, my braces are looking pretty bad. 3. And my range is negative infinity to positive infinity. Remember, we're only looking at the y coordinates for the range. So the range just continues up and it goes to the negative and positive infinity. Okay, use the graph of f. Okay, find the domain and range of each. Okay, I don't think I need that. Let's say we are going to cross that out. That shouldn't be the directions on this. We're just using the graph. So the directions are actually right here on the graph. Use the graph of f below to answer exercises 75 through 80. These are just simply from your book. So the first one says if, right, it's an ordered pair. If x is 0, then y is, do you see that? Negative 1. So 0, negative 1 is a point on this graph, and we're talking about the blue graph. Complete the ordered pair solution for f. So we start with x equals 3. So when x equals 3, we're right here at negative 2. And now they're going to be asking a little bit of a different way. This one says f of 0, so that basically is saying when x equals 0, what is y? When x equals 0, what is y? So it's really the same question as number 75 in a little bit of a different way. So it would be negative 1. And then same thing when x is 3, right? What is y? Same kind of question. So x equals negative 2. Do you see how those are the same as those? So when x equals 3, what is y? Okay, next, number 79 says, if f of x equals 0, so what that means is y equals 0, what is x? I'm going to write that down here for 79. So here's what it's saying. When y equals 0, what is x? All right, so let's look over here. When y equals 0, that's actually the x-axis. So there are two ordered pair, or two x coordinates. One's at negative 1, and the other is at 1, 2, 3, 4, at 5. So this is going to be x equals negative 1 and 5. And then on number 80, oh, silly thing, number 80, sorry about that, it's saying when y equals negative 1, what is x? Same kind of question then. So when y is negative 1, right, so that's kind of going right here, then we can see we've got x equals 0 and x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, x equals 4. Okay, so that's the rest of this lesson. I will take off that find the domain and range off of my PowerPoint lessons, and this is the end of chapter 3.